Okay. So if you go out there to the MFP Bootcamp.mybluemixbut.net, I did put up last night's training, which we'll go over today, because last night's session was not recorded because it was more of a working session, but tonight's session we will record. And what that means is I'll have to go back over some of the stuff we did last night, which is fine. So we'll go ahead and get started on that, and then we'll dive into tonight's session. But first, let's do a review of the LDAP configuration and adapter that we did last night. Okay. So if you look at Module 3A, same sections: setup, development, and testing. So first we'll go to setup. And like I was saying before, what I chose to do was to install a Linux desktop. I chose this desktop called LXLE. The reason why is because, well, these bullets you see on the right here, it's light on resources, heavy on function. So especially since I'm running a virtual on top of my PC, I want the virtual to be fast but light on resources. So this particular LXLE desktop seemed to provide that. But it's Ubuntu based, which makes it easy for package management. So anyway, this is where you install it, and the way you install it is you select your flavor. I think this is the one I chose, LXLE 64-bit. You choose that, and then you have to type in, let's see. Oh, I see. You have to click this, and then you have to type say it and see it. And then when you submit, then it downloads the operating system. Okay? So that'll get you the LXLE operating system. Once that's downloaded, it's an ISO. You can run that on a standalone machine, or in my case, on a virtual machine under VirtualBox. VirtualBox is free, so you can install it there. And if you look on my box, I have it installed right here. So you install the operating system, and now you can configure LDAP on this Linux installation. And the reason why I chose that is because LDAP is much easier to install and configure on a box like this. Now, once you have the base operating system up and running, there's some post-installation that I would recommend. First, we're going to go ahead and update our operating system and upgrade it if there's any new packages. And then there's some basic things that I install. Git, VI, I use quite a bit. Node.js and npm. When you install Node.js on these Linux boxes, it'll go under user bin Node.js. So you're going to want to go ahead and create a symbolic link for Node. That way you can just type Node at the command prompt. Also go ahead and grab Java 7 and Ant. And then these two are nice to have, Chromium Browser and Terminator, which is this is the terminal that I use. And you can do things like split into multiple terminals. Okay, so it's Terminator. But the most important one for this tutorial is slapd and LDAP utils. You're going to need both of those. These packages down here are optional, but of course Cordova is for open source mobile HTML5 mobile development. In fact, you don't need this for MobileFirst, but MobileFirst does ship with a version of Cordova. And then GraphViz is a graphing tool, a programmable graphing tool. Okay. Now, next you need to fix your host name because it gives a generic local host name. So I go to Etsy host. I change the host name here and also in Etsy host name. I just chose v1.proficient.com and then restart the system. Okay. So that was step 3, fix host name. Next, you go on to step 4. So at this point, we have LDAP installed, but it's not configured. So in order to configure it, you run this command right here, sudo dpackage reconfigure /d. And I went ahead and put the answers that I gave it for all of the different screens. But once you finish this, you have a base LDAP DN. One thing of note is that you can run this again at a later time if you want to reset it. So that's good to have. Okay, so that was step 4, configure LDAP. And then step 5 is you need to populate your database. Well, I guess we could do this. Tell you what, let's try this out. Okay. So I'm going to run this reconfigure. And you get this dialog. The first question is, do you want to omit Open LDAP server configuration? And the answer to that is no. Okay, which is the default. Next is the DNS domain name. And mine is proficient.com. Of course, I shortened proficient to POFT.com. And then please enter the organization name. I just typed in Proficient. Please enter the password for the admin entry of your LDAP directory. Okay. And what database backend do you want to use? We choose HDB. That's the default. Do you want the database to be removed when flap D is purged? I think the answer to that is yes. Okay. So yes. And you want to move the old database? That's also yes. And then allow LDAP v2 protocol, I believe that's no. Yeah, okay, it is no. Okay, and now I have just a clean but a base LDAP configuration. Now next we're going to populate our database, but before we do that, I'm going to do that search down here because I want to see what the database looks like before we populate it. Okay. So I just did an LDAP search, and I passed it some parameters. It basically says dump everything. And you can see there's really nothing in here. There's an entry for the organization, but that's pretty much it. So the next step is we're going to populate our database. And I say here, let's introduce some content into our database. We'll add the following. We're going to add a node called people to store users, a node called groups to store groups, a group called users, a user called swrite, and a user called tstark. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a file called addcontent.ldif, and we're going to put this information inside of it. Okay, I'm just going to delete what I have, and I'm going to paste from the tutorial. Okay. At this point, we can go ahead and use this utility LDAP add to add that content to our Proficient organization. And you can see it did add those entries. And to verify, we can go back in there and type the same LDAP search. And remember, before it didn't give us anything. Okay? But you see now it knows about our people, our groups, our users, and then the two users, swrite and tstark. Okay? So really the thing that takes the longest is downloading the ISO. After that, it's smooth sailing. Okay. So that's the setup part of that module, the LDAP module. Next is the development part. And we chose to create another Java adapter. So we're going to use the same architecture. Mobile application or client application connects to the MobileFirst server, and then it does something interesting on the back end. Before, what was interesting is we hit another enterprise HTTP web service from our adapter. With this module, we're going to hit LDAP. So we've already done all this, create project. And we can skip down here to create a MobileFirst adapter. So what I'm going to do is delete my adapter. Okay, so just like normal, we do right-click on adapters, new, MobileFirst adapter. We're going to choose Java adapter. Adapter name is going to be LDAP adapter. Package name is com.proficient.mfp bootcamp. Okay, now we have the LDAP adapter. At this point, it gives us the same two files that we're used to, the application and the LDAP resource file. We're going to make some changes to the LDAP resource file. We have the nice stub here, but we really need to go and look at the imports we need. So let's grab those first. And then the second is the class implementation. Let me grab that real quick. And I'll go through this one more time. Well, a little berserk there, not bad. Let's try this again. So I'm just going to replace the class implementation with what's on the tutorial. Okay. At that point, I happen to have already had my server started, so I saved it and it went ahead and deployed it. Okay. And just to go through the code a little bit, we're going to keep this API concept, and I'm doing a path. It's just a get path. I'll take some positional parameters, username and password, and then we authored a new method called authenticate user, which is here, and this is where we implement the code. Now I noticed here that I've got some hard-coded values, so let's take those out of there. This shouldn't have my name, it should have the username. And the same down here. Okay. So what this will do is it will create a hash table. It'll put these parameters in there, and then it will attempt to log into LDAP and then do a query. And if all that is successful, then we'll say authenticated is true. Otherwise, authenticated is false. Okay. That's pretty much it. And then now we go to, just go back to the tutorial. And I know this is somewhat of a review from last night, but we weren't recording, so we needed to get this recorded. Start your server, deploy the adapter, and then go to test. So let's click the final part here. Install Postman if you don't already have it. Test the adapter. So let me copy this. Well, I probably already have it in Postman. Let me just launch Postman. And so I have one here that has the right user but the wrong password. So we'll go ahead and send that, and we see that's not authenticated. Now we'll try it with the right password but the wrong user. Also not authenticated. Now, finally, for a positive test, we'll do the right user and the right password. And we see that we're authenticated. Okay? So that is all that I have for the LDAP HTTP adapter. Okay? Now, what I thought I would do tonight is I would go over the SQL adapter that comes with MobileFirst. Now, one of the things that you're going to need to do the SQL adapter is an installation of some sort of SQL database. One of the ones that's easy to install and configure on Ubuntu is MySQL. So let's go through those steps. Once you have your base operating system, you can install MySQL using app-get. So it's this command right here that you do app-get install MySQL Server. And then I've already issued this command, so I already have SQL Server installed. So now let's just make sure that everything looks good. So you can do this netstack command to make sure that you have it. Okay, and you can see that MySQL is installed and it's listening. So we're good to go there. Okay. And that's pretty much it. The next thing is we want to get into MySQL. And the way you do that is MySQL space-u for user, and then the username. I just went with the root user, but it's probably advisable to create some users. And then -p, which stands for password. So I'll enter that. And now you can see I'm in MySQL. Now, when you first install it, you will have a couple of databases. I'm going to drop this database that I created and recreate it. So these are the three that you have by default: information schema, MySQL, and performance schema. If you want to create a database, we just type create database MFP Bootcamp. Now if I say show databases, we see it there. MFP Bootcamp. Now, if we want to use that database, we need to type connect MFP Bootcamp. And now you can see that we're connected to the database MFP Bootcamp. Now we can type the command show tables. We don't have any tables because we haven't created any yet. So what we're going to do is create our table. And I thought we would create a table. See, we already have web services for vehicles and dealers. I thought we'd create a database and we would mimic this thing where, let's say the dealers have to do something every day. And so one of the things they want to get from their mobile app is, what am I supposed to be doing today? So we'll create this table called tasks. And tasks will have three properties. We'll have an ID, which is an auto increment. We'll have description, and it'll have type. Okay. So the way you do that in SQL Server is create table tasks, parentheses, ID, int, not null, primary key, auto increment. So that's all for the ID. And then description, which is our field that's describing the task. We'll make it of type text. Not terribly efficient, but well, not as efficient maybe as a smaller like varchar 30, but I sure do like how easy it is to use. And then you don't have to worry about it. And then the second, or I guess the third field is type, and it's also of type text. Okay, so that will create our table. Now, if we type show tables, we have our table. We can do a select star from. Actually, we can do a describe. I think. Describe? Yes, it is. So we described the table. We can see that we have three fields, an integer, two text, and that's it. Okay. If we do a select star from task, we see that we don't have anything in there. Okay. So now we want to insert some data into this table. So the first row that we're going to insert is a task that says perform end of month inventory, and we're going to give it the type dealer. And then we're going to insert another row put out sales placards. And let's add one more called manager. Let's say approved timesheets. Okay? So now if we do that same select statement, we see that we have three rows, 2 for dealer and 1 for manager. Okay? So from a database standpoint, we've done our setup just like we did for LDAP. And now we're ready to go on to the next thing. Any questions about that? Okay. So let me fire Eclipse back up here. And I'll go ahead and start my server. Okay. So use a couple resources for this block, and I'll put these all in the notes in just a bit. But one of the things you have to do is if you have if you're going to do a SQL adapter in MobileFirst, you need to have the appropriate JDBC driver. That's the bottom line. And for MySQL, that's going to come from, well, this actually has a link, but there's a link right there. Let me paste that in the chat real quick. So this is the current MySQL download. And when you download that file, you can either download the zip or you can download the tar.gz file. Either way, when you unpack that, you're going to get a couple things. Most important of which is this jar file right here. MySQL connector Java 5136 bin.jar. Okay? So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to bring this file into Eclipse. And there's a specific place that you need to put it. So under your project, so our project is MFP Bootcamp. There's several folders, but one of the folders is called Server. And underneath server is live. So that's where you need to put this jar file. what I did was I right-clicked on here, and I selected Import. Then I expanded from Where General File System, and I selected the place where I put that jar file. Okay, and when you click OK, then it gives you a choice of what you want to bring in. So I'm going to select this jar file. I'll go ahead and overwrite the one that I have. Okay, and so that brings it into the project. And I think it refreshes the server, and it actually already knows about your jar. I saw some evidence out there that you had to configure it. Like I was following this particular getting started, and they were saying something about this server.xml, but I didn't have to change that. Yeah, I didn't have to change this file. All I did was copy the jar, and it figured it out. So that was good. But it was useful to read this article because I found the JDBC file here. Okay, but the one I really used was this other article. I'm just now noticing that this is 6.3, but it worked just fine. Okay. Let me copy that. Okay. So I'll put this in the notes later, but we can use this one for now. Now, this adapter is a little bit different than the Java adapter. You're not going to be writing any Java code. This is all actually JavaScript, believe it or not. But it says here, the IBM MobileFirst platform SQL adapter is designed to communicate with any SQL data source. You can use plain SQL, or you can use stored procedures. As a developer, you must download the JDBC connector driver for the specific database and put it into your server live folder, which is what I did. And that's pretty much it. Then we can go straight to create the adapter. So what I'm going to do is delete my adapter. I may want to save it real quick. Let me just copy it. It's pretty easy, but I just want to be sure I don't mess it up. Okay, so I got that backed up. Now I'm going to delete it. Richard, I'm not as daring tonight, I don't think. Okay. So let's see, where is that? It's right here. I believe it is. Okay, so this one's actually pretty straightforward. We right click here, new, MobileFirst adapter, just like normal. And then here, instead of selecting Java adapter, we select SQL adapter. And we're going to give it the name SQL adapter. There's an option here for create procedures for offline JSON store. We're not going to deal with that right now. So at this point, we can just press finish. And just like the Java adapter, it builds out a stub for you. 2 files in this case, an XML file and a JavaScript file. Okay. So in the adapter XML, what you need to do is you need to change any values here that are not correct. For instance, we called our database MFP Bootcamp. And I currently have root as my, and I got a dummy password in there. Save that. So you need to make sure that all of this matches up to what you did. Okay. The other thing is, yeah.
Did I miss it, or how did it know to use MySQL? Is it just default to that, or did you select it?
I did not select it. It defaulted to it. Now, I don't know what it would have done if I hadn't already copied the MySQL driver.
Well, maybe that's the only one that's available.
Oh, you did it?
I was just saying maybe that was the only JDP driver found, so it didn't have to figure out, or it just defaulted to it. I mean, that's fine. If you didn't have to, I just was concerned to miss something. I think we can go on.
No.
Okay.
I don't know yet whether, I mean, they say here example for using a MySQL connector, which is awfully convenient since I use MySQL. But
okay.
Maybe this is always the case, regardless of, like, let's say I had Oracle or SQLite or something like that. Maybe it always puts this in there. I don't know.
That's my guess, but
yeah,
I think we can go on.
Thankfully, no, I appreciate the comment. Thankfully, this is what I had on my system here.
Yeah, I can do a quick test. I'll put DB2 and MySQL in there and see what it is while you keep going, Sean.
Okay. Oh, Charles. Oh, good. You joined. Okay.
Yep.
So the next thing is down here, lines 31 and 32, you need to replace with the appropriate procedures. Okay. And this is kind of a misnomer. I mean, they're saying procedures, but it could just be a query of the database. It doesn't have to be a stored procedure. Now, the SQL adapter supports both queries and stored procedures, but this is not what this means. This means your MobileFirst SQL stored procedure. I mean, your MobileFirst SQL procedure, which is really just a function. Okay. So let's delete this second one here, and let's create a procedure called get tasks. Okay. And hopefully what this procedure will do is it'll connect to our backend database and we'll get our stuff. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the SQL Adapter XML configuration. Next is the JavaScript. Now, you know, before they had these two procedures in here in the XML file, those names matched up with these two procedures here. One example invokes a stored procedure, and the other is a prepared statement. We don't have any stored procedures, so we can get rid of this one. So now we're left to this procedure one. We're going to call this get task. And first of all, we're going to create a SQL statement by calling a MobileFirst API called create SQL statement, and we'll call this get task statement. And then we'll do our SQL statement here. For that, I'll jump quickly back out to my SQL client here, and we'll modify our statement saying select star from task where type equals dealer. And what that did is it filtered my results to only have tasks that are applicable to a dealer. So this is the SQL statement that we want to execute. So coming back over to MobileFirst, I can replace this SQL statement with our guy, and then a positional place mark for the parameter. Select star from task where type equals question mark. Okay. So now we can call this worklight method to create our statement. So now we have a statement in JavaScript. And then here we rename this to get task. And what this is going to do is it's going to call a MobileFirst API method called invoke SQL statement. And we need to make sure that we call the procedure the correct name, which is get task statement. So that's the prepared statement. Go ahead and save that. And again, since I have my server running, it's going to go ahead and build and deploy that to my server. Now, it's kind of funny because they have this IBM copyright up here, but once you change it, is it really, I mean, shouldn't we just get rid of this? Like, I think this was just copyright for the code that was there, but now that you've changed it, I don't think it's IBM's anymore, is it?
It depends on if it's substantially similar or not.
If what?
It depends if it's substantially similar or not. But we don't need to get into it. I did a stint as a patent attorney, so I can answer your questions in regard to that. But
well, we're going to call it a massive chain. we're going to get rid of that. Okay.
And depends on what industry you're in. Music industry seems to have less. So I did a quick test had DB2 and MySQL, and it still defaulted to the MySQL.
Okay, so just as we suspected.
Yep, it's just their standard template.
And I just got super lucky.
Oh, that's pure skill.
Okay, so now I think we're good to go. Pretty sure this is going to work. We changed our XML file to be correctly configured. We've implemented our procedure. So at this point, I wanted to show you something else. Today, we've been using Postman to test our adapters. But for this one, I'm going to use the built-in capability within MobileFirst Studio. So I'm going to right-click here, and I'm going to select Run As, and then call MobileFirst Adapter. Now, we could have done this with the other ones too, by the way. But I'm going to try this. And it has a list of all the procedures that are out there. and then it has procedure arguments and headers. So this is another way that you can test your adapters through the MobileFirst Studio. So the parameter we're going to pass in is dealers, so I can run that. And what's funny is it does it, but then it just says procedure implication finished, and that's it. Well, what I discovered is that it actually sends you this, or it opens a browser window. And it turned out that I didn't get any results. And I think the reason why is it's not dealers, plural, it's dealer, the type. Okay? So we'll come back in here, run it again. And we'll correct our parameter. Run it, and then we'll check our results. And there you go. It was successful, and we got a JSON of our dealer types. Just to make sure it's working, we can run it one more time. And this time put manager in there. And there you go. Okay, so that concludes what I was going to show you about creating a SQL adapter. Similar to the LDAP adapter, most of the work was actually setting up the system that's going to query, not the code itself. Obviously, when we get on a project and we use MobileFirst, the requirements will dictate how complicated that needs to be, but the basic setup and the basic adapter is pretty straightforward. Any questions so far on what I've covered during this first hour, either LDAP adapter or SQL adapter? Okay. Make sure you guys are still with me. Tom, you guys still out there? Charles, Richard, you guys still out there?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right. So we're coming up on 8 o'clock Central Time. Let's go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. It's currently, let's call it 7:57. So let's be back at 7 minutes after the hour. Okay? See you back in just a minute.